Dragonyhm is an indie action RPG with a dev team of 2 members that released this month for the Game Boy Color, and was created using GB Studio development software. Despite the coding and art being handled by a single person, this game frequently shines with the polish and prowess of officially licensed 8-bit RPGs from the likes of Nintendo and Enix. After 15 hours, I've beaten the game and completed much of its side content, so let's explore what makes Dragonyhm a successful game that you should consider playing. The story of Dragonyhm broadly consists of a boy with a special gift setting out on an adventure, and there's a great evil, and yeah, I'm sure this sounds very familiar. The finer details and theme, however, are where the game stands out. As the son of a great hero and dragon slayer, you're tasked with finding your suddenly missing father and thwarting an evil cult in his absence. Signs that the dragons your dad once sealed away are close to breaking free are starting to show, and you'll need to work with a trio of witches and hunt down nearly a dozen mysterious dragon scales to gain the power to enter the sealed dungeons and slay the dragons within before they're set free by the horrible power of their spiteful dragon leader known as the Blackest Night. You'll learn from the opening cinematic that your father cut down Blackest Night's more docile brother, and since then, the world's yang has been overpowered by yin, leaving the draconic world in imbalance. As you slay each dragon and work towards confronting Blackest Night, you'll learn more about your mysterious magical abilities, your father's whereabouts, and the recent war that led to the brief time of peace the humans have been enjoying lately. The game tells some of its best lore through the dungeons themselves, with the second main dungeon in particular delving into morality and the rocky relationship between humans and dragons. You'll read journals and pick up on events from the past through atmospheric storytelling. The game's conclusion is satisfying and leaves you with some reflection. Gameplay consists of traveling the overworld, clearing dungeons of monsters and puzzles, leveling up through turn-based combat, collecting gear and dragon scales, learning new magic and weapon attacks, and participating in the cinematic story. Side activities include minigames, hunting down rare equipment, and finding trading cards that detail each main character and monster. Let's get combat out of the way because it's honestly not the game's strongest asset. As a party of 1, you'll primarily be winning fights by buffing yourself and or nerfing your opponent through consumable items, using status effects like paralysis and burn, followed by smacking the opponent for their weakness, which is initially a guessing game. One undead-themed creature may be weak to fire, another not. You just have to blindly test, and when you figure out what works best on a certain species, write it down because you'll definitely be seeing that enemy again. Avoiding enemy encounters is an option, but leaves you at a massive disadvantage as you won't learn new moves as quickly and will be grossly underleveled for upcoming encounters. Grinding from level 15 to about 25 is almost necessary prior to entering the first main dungeon, which I wasn't a fan of. The early game combat can be quite stale, with you having little more to work with than basic attacks and consumables, but by around level 35 or so, your creative options open up a lot, with you having the choice between using different armor, weapons, magic spells, all with their own playstyle and synergies. For example, in the middle of the game, I tended to roll with an armor that increased the chance of putting status effects on enemies, and I used a magic spell called Ice Stakes that frequently froze the opponent, which is a combination of paralysis and burn, and I found this to be very effective. Enemy levels do somewhat scale with you, but you will fall behind in level if you're not battling frequently. Again, discovering each enemy's weakness is paramount. Your character has attributes like defense, magic, and speed, and they only increase if you use a corresponding item or attack within a battle that leads to a level up. For example, you'll need to use a protective bomb in battle at the tail end of your level up meter in order to gain +1 in your defense when you level up. It's a weird system, but I like that it encourages combat variety so as to keep your stats balanced. Ignoring this system, like I did initially, is guaranteed to lead to struggles. The strongest area of the game has to be the puzzles and dungeons. These are expertly designed and genuinely challenging. I was always excited to find a new puzzle to solve because I knew it would be crafted with the utmost thought. You'll find a lot of familiarity with Zelda puzzles here. I was reminded of the Dominion Rod from Twilight Princess, combat-focused room clearing of Oracle of Seasons, and the Water Temple from Ocarina of Time. But get this, the Water Temple in Dragonyhm might be superior in design. I genuinely loved how this dungeon's water mechanic changed how the rooms were played. It's a high point of the game for sure. In all, there are 4 large main dungeons and several smaller dungeons to complete, and they're all wonderful. Dragonym's presentation is another standout feature. The graphics are great, and there's a lot of quality of life and detail that the devs could have gotten away with leaving out, but they went the extra 2 miles. For example, you can test out all of your attacks in an animated technique menu and learn what each do before you use them in battle. Your character's overworld and menu sprite changes when you switch armor, and you might be treated differently depending on what you wear, along with certain armor being needed to access certain areas. Animations are absolutely excellent, rivaling official Nintendo sprite work. From start to finish, the game loves to impress the player with cinematic animations created the hard way. The music and sound effects are very strong and use every MIDI technique imaginable. There's also at least one alternate ending, depending on how much of the game you complete. 2 alphabetic languages were created for the game, and you'll need to snap a picture of them in-game to decipher future messages. This may or may not appeal to some players. Technical issues are at a minimum. On a couple of occasions, I've found enemies momentarily phasing in and out of existence, but nothing inexcusable. One larger grievance I have is that I found myself dying in dungeons a lot, and had to walk all the way back to them after waking up at home, or when I was poisoned or low on mana and had to walk from deep inside the dungeon to the entrance just to heal in the main lobby. This backtracking was a nuisance, but the best way to overcome it is to grind and be well leveled and stock up on a lot of consumables before starting a dungeon, and to manage those consumables wisely. But my criticisms cannot detract from my overall opinion on the game. Dragonyhm is a triumph in indie retro game development. Its writing, presentation, and dungeons are top tier, and if you're at all into 2D Zelda, Pokemon, or RPGs in general, you should play this game. The fact that one person coded this 15+ hour adventure with such high standards is a marvel, and I think it will go down as one of the best Game Boy games created after the official game stopped coming out in 2003. You can grab a cartridge of Dragonyhm from Mod Retro or Incubate Games, and if you're looking for the most economical and convenient way to play it, check out the GB Operator. It's a $50 PC and Mac device that plays any Game Boy cartridge while also letting you manage the ROMs and saves and play using any controller you want. See the description for more details. Thanks so much for watching, and get to dragon slaying.